The intensive care unit was suffocatingly cold. The heart monitor beeped in the background, a steady, hollow sound that echoed the emptiness in my chest. Teet, teet, teet. He was on life support. The man I had married, the father of my 3 children, was fighting for his very existence. I stood at the doorway, completely paralyzed, watching the scene unfold before me. A woman was leaning over his frail body. She was stroking his hair, whispering desperate, intimate words into his ear. A doctor approached with a clipboard. "Excuse me, ma'am, we need to discuss his vitals. Are you his mother?" The woman turned around. Her eyes were fiercely possessive. "No, I am his wife. Please tell me everything." A cold shiver violently ripped through my spine. That woman was not his wife. That woman was his biological mother. 15 years, a decade and a half of my life, poured entirely into a man who was never truly mine to begin with. When we first got married, I believed I was entering a beautiful partnership. We were young, hopeful, and ready to build a kingdom of our own. 3 beautiful children came into this world. They became the absolute center of my universe. My reason for waking up every single morning. I sacrificed everything for this family. I gave up my personal ambitions, my quiet evenings, my peace of mind, all to ensure that our home was a sanctuary. In the beginning, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive because I had a mother-in-law who was endlessly supportive. She was always there. When he struggled with his career, she was there to soothe his ego. When we faced financial ruin because of his reckless decisions, she quietly paid off the debts before I could even understand the severity of the situation. I thought this was just the unconditional love of a devoted mother. I was so incredibly wrong. There is a sinister difference between loving a child and devouring them. Over the years, her presence transformed from a helpful shadow into an invisible, suffocating cage. She began to dictate the rhythm of our household. She knew our schedules better than we did. She arranged his appointments. She even managed his personal bank accounts. Whenever my husband and I had an argument even over the most trivial things like parenting styles or household chores, he never stayed to resolve it with me. He ran. He ran straight back to her house, back to the safety of her apron strings. And she welcomed him with open arms, validating his every flaw, telling him that he was perfect and that I was simply demanding too much. She was bailing him out of every single responsibility an adult man should have. She bailed him out of being a father. She bailed him out of being a partner. She was carefully, methodically, constructing a reality where he would never have to grow up. And I was just the background character in their twisted fairy tale. I was the incubator for her grandchildren, the unpaid maid, the temporary placeholder until she could reclaim him entirely. The peace I thought I had built was nothing but a fragile glass house, resting on the foundation of a psychological nightmare. I had given 15 years of my youth to a phantom husband. The facade finally began to crumble, exposing the rotting wood beneath. It started with small, easily dismissed inconsistencies. Unexplained absences. Missing funds. A sudden emotional distance that felt wider than an ocean. But the truth is a predator. It always hunts you down eventually. Last year, the ultimate betrayal was dragged out of the shadows. My husband, the man I shared a bed with, had been having an affair. Not a brief moment of weakness. Not a one-night stand. A 9-year affair. 9 years of parallel lives. 9 years of stolen moments with a coworker while I was at home, raising his children, holding his chaotic life together. I was shattered. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of broken glass. But the true horror, the detail that completely broke my mind, was not the other woman. It was his mother. She admitted it. She sat across from me, sipping her tea with absolute calmness, and confessed that she had known about the affair the entire time. She knew. She supported it. She kept his filthy secret while I was still his loyal wife. Why? Why would a mother encourage her son to destroy his own family? Because a broken, guilty son is a dependent son. If his marriage failed, he would have nowhere else to go but back to her. She actively cheered for my destruction just to keep him under her roof. Then came the drug use. Blatant, undeniable drug use. He was spiraling out of control, losing his grip on reality. And what did she do? She ignored it. She turned a blind eye to the needles, the pills, the erratic behavior, just to maintain the illusion that her precious boy was perfectly fine as long as he was with her. The dynamic between them shifted from overly close to downright grotesque. In public, The behavior became so jarring that people would stare. She stopped calling him by his name. She exclusively referred to him as babe or honey. My blood boiled when I heard her telling stories to her friends, referring to her own son as daddy. "Oh, daddy bought me these flowers today." It was nauseating. The ongoing joke among our mutual friends, a joke whispered in horrified tones, was that they were completely married in every single way, except for the physical component. And the nighttime routine. She blatantly claimed she could not go to sleep. Until he came into her room. He had to tuck her in. He had to tuck the dog in. And he had to kiss them both goodnight. Only then could the queen rest. I was living in a psychological horror movie, and the monster was masquerading as a mother's love. The breaking point arrived in the sterile, terrifying environment of the hospital. His body had finally given out. The years of unchecked drug abuse, the stress of his double life, the toxic enmeshment, it all culminated in a catastrophic collapse. He was placed on life support. Machines were breathing for him. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding, terrified for the father of my children despite everything he had done to me. But I wasn't the first one there. She was. As I walked into the ICU, I witnessed the scene that will be forever burned into my retinas. She was asserting her dominance over his comatose body. She was aggressively introducing herself to every single doctor, every nurse, every specialist that walked into that room. "I am his wife. I am the one making the decisions here. Not his mother, his wife." It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a deliberate, calculated theft of my identity. She was claiming the ultimate title, erasing my 15 years of marriage with a single, psychotic lie. I stood there, watching this woman practically crawl into the hospital bed with him. The level of betrayal was staggering. It felt like a physical blow to the chest. She had orchestrated this. She had bailed him out of our marriage. She had bailed him out of his divorce. And now, as he lay dying, she had finally achieved her ultimate goal. She was the only woman left in his life. Crack. That was the sound of my emotional chains snapping. In that freezing hospital room, staring at the woman who had essentially married her own son, the fog completely lifted. I saw the sheer toxicity of this relationship. It was a black hole, sucking the life out of everyone who came near it. He wasn't focused on getting sober. He wasn't focused on surviving for his 3 kids. Because he was too incredibly busy being a surrogate husband to his own mother. This dynamic was a complete, impenetrable barrier to his sobriety. As long as she was there, feeding his ego, hiding his drugs, and kissing him goodnight, he would never hit the rock bottom he so desperately needed to recover. I realized then that I could not save him. He didn't want to be saved. He wanted to be coddled to death. I turned around. I walked out of the ICU. I left them there, in their twisted, sickness-filled honeymoon suite. The break was absolute. I walked out of that hospital a completely different woman. The weeping, desperate wife was dead. In her place stood a mother, ready to go to war for her children. I knew I had to move on, but escaping a family that operates like a cult requires absolute precision. I could not just walk away. I had to sever every legal, financial, and emotional tie, or she would find a way to drag my children into her swamp. I operated in complete silence. I hired the most ruthless family lawyer I could find. I didn't utter a single word to him or his mother. Let them think I was grieving. Let them think I was weak. I began compiling the evidence. Every text message where she admitted to hiding his affair. Every medical document proving his drug addiction and her refusal to intervene. Every witness statement from friends and family who had observed their grotesque babe and daddy dynamic. I documented the hospital incident. I got sworn statements from the ICU nurses, who confirmed she had repeatedly impersonated his legal wife. I was building a fortress. She thought she had won. When he eventually stabilized and was taken off life support, she moved him permanently into her bedroom. I mean, her house. She formally bailed him out of our divorce proceedings. She paid his legal fees, thinking she could intimidate me into walking away with nothing. She wanted me destitute so I would be forced to crawl back and submit to her bizarre matriarchy. But she grossly underestimated my rage. I didn't want his money. I didn't want his assets. I wanted full custody. I wanted a legal mandate, ensuring that this deeply disturbed woman could never be left alone with my children. I presented my case not as a scorned wife dealing with infidelity, but as a protective mother shielding her kids from severe psychological abuse and an active drug addict. The court documents were filed. The trap was sprung. There was no escape for them now. The spotlight of truth was about to shine directly onto their sickening symbiosis. The courtroom was dead silent. The judge, a stern woman with decades of experience, stared at the evidence laid out before her. She read the nurse's statements. She saw the admission of the 9-year affair cover-up. And most damning of all, she reviewed the psychological evaluations, detailing the severe, toxic enmeshment between a mother and her adult son. His mother sat across the aisle, clutching his hand tightly, whispering into his ear like a frightened bride. It was the final performance of their grotesque play. The hammer fell. Full legal and physical custody awarded to me. Strict supervised visitation for him, contingent on mandatory, heavily monitored drug rehabilitation. And a strict order. His mother was explicitly barred from being present during any visits with my children. She lost her mind. Right there in the courtroom, the elegant facade shattered. She screamed. She cried out that I was stealing her family. She looked at him, expecting him to defend her, to fight for her like a loyal husband. But he just sat there, broken, hollow, destroyed by the very woman who claimed to love him the most. By saving him from hitting rock bottom, she had ultimately buried him alive. I walked out of the courthouse, the heavy doors closing behind me. The air outside tasted incredibly sweet. It is beyond exhausting to watch someone you once loved destroy themselves. It is a constant drain on your mental health to fight a ghost you can never defeat. But I am no longer fighting. I severed the rotting limb to save the rest of my life. My children will grow up in a home filled with actual peace, not a theater of twisted codependency. He chose his mother to be his partner. And now, they have nobody but each other. In their sick, isolated world, they are finally married. And I am finally free.